I'm Eric Norman, he, him, and I'm excited to host this episode of Inside the Canopy Files. Joining me today is Alex Cruz. He is the National Director of Education and Professional Services for the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance. We're looking forward to diving into the vibrant world of the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance and hope you'll listen as we explore the crucial need for inclusivity in real estate. Discover the power of allyship, the story behind the groundbreaking Ally Certification course, and the vital role local chapters play, especially in North Carolina. We'll unveil insights from our annual housing report and share exciting ways you can join the movement and make a difference. Whether you're a real estate pro or an ally in the making, get ready for an engaging, informative, and fun-filled journey into building a more inclusive real estate community. Tune in, get inspired, and be part of the change. And we're back. Joining me today is Alex Cruz, who just flew in 2 hours ago. He is the National Director of Education and Professional Services for the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance. And just to provide a little bit more background, Alex is a highly accomplished realtor at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Professional Realty. Originally from South Florida, he brings over a decade of retail management and business operation experience to his thriving real estate career in Cleveland, Ohio. With a strong focus on sales and customer satisfaction, Alex is dedicated to providing exceptional service to his clients. In addition to his successful real estate practice, Alex is actively involved in the industry in various organizations. He likes to stay busy. In addition to Alex's current role as Director of Education and Professional Services for the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance, having previously held the position of inaugural National Vice President, he also serves as the Director for Ohio Realtors and has contributed to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee at the state level. Locally, Alex serves on the board of directors at the Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors and was the 2023 chair of the Akron DE&I Committee for the Cleveland Association of Realtors, continuing his involvement on the committee. Additionally, he holds the role of RPAC trustee Realtors Political Action Committee for both Ohio Realtors and the Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors. Alex is also proud to be a member of the board of directors for Plexus, the LGBTQ Allied Business Chamber of Commerce of Northeast Ohio. Welcome, Alex.
Great to be here.
I feel like I gave you quite the intro.
I know.
But I wanted people to have a little bit more insight of who you are, a little bit more of your background. And another important thing is that Alex developed a continuing education approved course in the state of Ohio. It was designed to educate and assist real estate professionals in establishing effective working relationships with LGBTQ consumers. Currently, Alex is teaching an updated version of this course to numerous local and state associations and at conferences both in person and virtually on behalf of the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance. And in fact, he is going to be teaching an in-person course here tomorrow at Canopy Real Estate Institute. So, Alex, thank you again for being here today. We know you just flew in just, 2 hours ago, so we really appreciate your time. And I'm just going to jump right in. So we are a week into Pride Month, and though I don't really want to focus on the negativity and hate, we have to address the elephant in the room, and that is that our organization, the LGBTQ community, and our fellow activists still have a long way to go in what seems to be addressing hate and discrimination. Just last week, NAR, the National Association of Realtors, posted a message in recognition of Pride Month on social media. It was a simple graphic and message in solidarity with our community. And the post just simply stated, "Join NAR in celebrating Pride Month and support the equal rights of all people regardless of their gender identity and sexual orientation." You know, I went back and looked at all the NAR posts since the beginning of May, and this post was the only one that garnered more than 1,000+ comments. No other post even got close to having this number of comments, and most of them didn't even garner the level of likes that this post received either. But let's talk about this a little bit, because not all of the comments and posts were in favor of NAR support for Pride Month. So can you give us a little bit of insight of what you viewed as well in those posts from our realtor community, because a lot of them gave me pause, and I thought, gosh, if this simple post unleashed all this anger and aggression towards our community, and these are realtors, then how can the same realtors be trusted to help guide the purchase or selling of real estate for those within our community?
Absolutely, and so the posts were very disheartening, and I went back and saw a lot of them, and I saw it grow every day and I did comment back and try to educate folks on some of those posts, but it just got very, very frustrating because you could only say so much where you're talking to a wall at that point where you realize they're not going to, they're just not going to get it. It's not going to click.
Right.
So, but it is, it's also very disheartening that, these are our quote unquote, our colleagues. These are, people that I might have seen at an NAR conference, at a state and local convention, at, things like that. And if they feel that way, and, we do have, the code of ethics. And, some of those comments, were borderline 10-5. Violations. Others were just, discussed over a post that was just triggering when they're just wishing somebody a happy Pride.
Yeah. So actually, when you talked about our Realtor Code of Ethics and Article 10.5, can you just mention that briefly, just as a refresher or reminder for those listening who may not know?
Yeah, the 10-5 just says you can't post or give hate speech or slurs, epithets, or anything like that. And it's a violation of the Code of Ethics. So, some of those were not that. Just because you say I don't agree with it, that's not hate speech. So that's why I say borders on that. But obviously the undertone is there, and you don't, there's not disapproval. But again, you don't have to, there's a lot of posts I see on social media that I don't agree with it, and I look at it, I read, and I move on. I don't add 1,000 posts and comments to it. There's nothing that triggers me that much that I have to really add and comment on.
It's kind of like if you don't feel connected or supportive, then why say anything at all?
Exactly. I think my mother taught me if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
That's right.
So I learned that as a child, and apparently there's a lot of adult children out there that did not learn that based off those posts and comments that were there.
So, why do you feel like, because I noticed, I even went back to some of the other previous posts on NAR's site just to see, as I mentioned, none of them garnered quite this attention. But, I also noticed that people use this Pride support post to comment on, their displeasure with NAR in general, of course, with the lawsuit and everything that's been out there. But why do you think they chose this post to comment on? Because it wasn't on any of the other recognition posts.
I think that it goes back to them taking a political stance on it. It was, there were many I think it was go woke, go broke kind of thing, very, leaning left, kind of liberal type things or whatever. And to me, acceptance of people is not political. Being tolerant to people is not a political stance.
Right. But
it's a human stance. It's a human kindness stance. It's I accept people for it's a human decency stance.
Exactly.
It's not political. There's nothing political about that.
And I think for a lot of people, though, I think I'm just trying to decipher when I was going through it, but I think it's the word pride or what their take on what that means. They're like, why do you need a whole month dedicated to your sexuality? And, you keep putting this in our face. And, I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of just kind of ignorance, around that. And so, I think Pride Month for most people who don't know our history has really just been boiled down to parades and stereotypes. But I think most people don't have a clue what Pride Month and its celebrations, really can be traced back to, which were the Stonewall riots of 1969. That was really just 55 years ago where people were being persecuted, for being the minority, which is what we were. And literally gay people couldn't even be seen together holding hands. They weren't even allowed to, drink in bars if they were, openly gay. And, I think that's where all of this started. That's where Pride came from. It started from those riots. It was really, the intention was to stand up for equal rights and just to be seen as an equal human being. So obviously, Pride has its celebration, has, continued in bigger ways because it's all about representation, right? So, I think for me, I think people don't understand the history of why Pride actually originated, and they're just looking at it as, oh, it's just a corporate, consumer grab, and it just means, what they're seeing in the media's portrayal negatively, being portrayed from, a Pride parade. But for us, it means so much more. Again, it's about that visibility, right? We were just talking earlier about not having representation when we were growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you touched on it too. When people see the Pride post, the elephant in the room, they just bring it back to sexuality and quote unquote gay sex, and Pride is beyond that. And it's celebrated in June because of the start of the Stonewall riots, which happened June 28th. So we're coming up on the anniversary of that, and actually, as we're recording this today, is the 8th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting. Right. 49 people died that night. And they just went out to the club to dance.
That's right.
So attacks to the community continue to happen, and that's why it's important to celebrate Pride, and to and to recognize it. So it's not just it's beyond sexuality. It's beyond that. It's used to honor, to recognize the impact of the LGBTQ individuals. The history, the culture. Its impact on society. It takes time to we want to commemorate the Stonewall riots that is coming up, but also and that was also the catalyst to the LGBTQ civil rights movement. With that. And, but Pride Month also works as a way to promote acceptance, equal rights. It gives visibility to the LGBT community while celebrating diversity and achievements. Additionally, it provides the opportunity to reflect on the ongoing struggles, inequality and importance in the fight for discrimination, and prejudice, because it still goes on.
Absolutely.
I got 1,000 posts that still prove that on that NR post.
That's right.
So that's why that's why the struggle and the fight still continues.
Exactly. And I think you just said it. I mean, it's something, that's why it's so important, for us to have this type of recognition, because it's an education opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to let people know that this is still a fight that's happening. And, you just mentioned Pulse nightclub, and so my husband and I actually just celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary yesterday, which was the day before Pulse. So we get married on June 11th in 2016, and we're celebrating with our friends and family. And literally that same night is when the attack on the nightclub happened. And, it was, the day after, all we could do, of course, we had a nice, wedding and a nice evening, but then that was just a gut punch, because it's like, even though we had come that far, and now here we are able to, quote, legally, get married, and, feeling more like, okay, we have equal rights now, like it's starting to go in an even more positive direction. But then just to see that someone, out of just pure hate of somebody they don't even know, and that they could go in and commit such a heinous crime just because someone was gay. And, you're right. It's a fight that we have to keep at. And now more than ever is when we need our allies, to help us and stand up. So for me, Pride Month, means a lot of things. Of course, it's an opportunity to celebrate, to have fun, and go to events and things like that. But it's also really important for me to educate people and, see how far we've come, but also how far we still need to go. So essentially, I think a lot of it boils down to, again, ignorance, and that's not meant to be insulting, but just to point out that people have not been educated about the history and significance of pride, and they just don't understand the struggles and milestones that the LGBTQ community has faced.
And continue to face.
Continue to face.
We should add, because, there's still not protections out there. So, it is still legal in 31 states to discriminate against LGBTQ people in the home buying and selling process. And, among other aspects of life, because, until 2015, when quote unquote gay marriage, Marriage Equality Act was passed, we couldn't get married. And even with that being legal, there's still challenges with that, because every once in a while there's still a baker that doesn't want to bake a cake. There's still a banquet hall that doesn't want to rent you a banquet hall. There's still a web designer that doesn't want to make you a fake website, So, there's those things out there that still occur. So even though there's still legal rights that have been granted, other things still come that we still have to fight for.
Well, I think when we talk about those basic human rights, I think a lot of it comes from the misconception too. And, there's a phrase that I kept seeing on the NAR post, and that I see just on, social media, in the general media a lot. And that's the phrase sexual preference. Oh, it just makes me cringe every time I hear it. So, if you could touch on a little bit, why sexual preference is just such a wrong term, and it should be sexual orientation. And I think this is when people say, oh, we don't care who you're having, sex with, and
who your sexual preference is, or
into sexualization, when in fact it's not about that. It's about how you're oriented. So if you could, kind of help me touch on that a little bit, and maybe educate some of the listeners that, again, it's not sexual preference, it's sexual orientation, and kind of what the differences are.
Yes, I think that's where the confusion comes in. Everybody's like, why are you promoting your sexual preference or anything like that? The confusion is a preference is something you prefer over something else. I like chocolate ice cream over vanilla ice cream. I like, the color blue over the color green. That is a preference. I choose to do this over that. Now, so I didn't choose to love a man over a woman. I don't wake up, and choosing that every day. So, as Lady Gaga said, I was born this way. This is just how we were wired from birth. Believe me, I did not choose to deal with the struggles that I faced as an adolescent, growing up and, going through puberty, and you're trying to figure yourself out, and you're struggling with it. The LGBTQ suicide rate is higher than the straight suicide rate, because of, you feel isolated, you feel alone, you feel rejected, you get rejected from your family, you get out of your house. The homelessness rate is extremely high. So those are things that people would not choose to do. Believe me, I wish many times when I was growing up and and dealing with those struggles that I was straight.
Right.
So it's not a choice. So whenever I see also that it's a preference to it, it makes my skin crawl. Absolutely.
Well, and I completely agree. The same way for me. And we have talked about this in the past. And just earlier today that. Again, just those struggles that you mentioned, of course, that's not a choice. Nobody's going to choose to, go against the grain and be judged and be ostracized potentially from their families. And, I shared my personal story. I didn't come out until I was 21 years old. And, I had a loving family. I, grew up in a Southern Baptist church, which definitely was anti-LGBT. And it was very confusing for me. As much as I wanted to change that, innate thing in me, which made me feel attraction towards, a male. It wasn't about sex for me. It was about who I felt love for. Like I dated girls because I felt like that's what I should do. And I loved them. But the first time I truly felt in love, I was like, this is how it's supposed to feel. And that was with a man. And again, that's not a choice that I would have chosen because it wasn't favorable, where I grew up. I had zero representation. There was not one person in a leadership role, in a teaching role, in any type of role that was openly gay. Now, granted, there was a lot of people who were gay, but they weren't open about it. It wasn't something that was shared. And all I saw was the, very stereotypical, representation that, would be in a movie. Like I love the movie Birdcage, but, it was very stereotypical. Yep. And, it was just kind of like, okay, well, I didn't connect with that.
Right. You didn't identify in that manner, correct.
And, but I think that's where, when I keep seeing people talking about, oh, well, you're, why are we need a month to celebrate your sexual preference? Quit, shoving that down our face or putting that in our face. It's just such a cringe thing for me because I spent all those years, including a lot of times with self-hate and, just wishing and like praying, please don't make me feel this way. And nobody's gonna, that's not a choice. Right.
Yeah.
So, I really am glad that, we're talking about this because I think it's important for people to hear from, from us, from a colleague, somebody in their industry who, has experienced, all of this and why pride is so important to us to be able to share and just hopefully maybe open up somebody's mind a little bit more. So, again, the true essence of pride is why it is important to have a dedicated month to celebrate again and recognize LGBTQ plus individuals and their rights. So this is really a social justice issue, and people need to understand that our community, again, is more than a stereotype. So with our community and for our organizations and many other that continually advocate on behalf, let's make it plain to our audience about why is there a need for the alliance in real estate. Another multiple posts that I saw were, okay, what does this have to do with real estate? And to me, I'm like, it has everything to do with real estate. And this is one of the reasons why in 2020, the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance was formed. So if you could share a little bit more, again, why we need the alliance in real estate.
Yeah, well, they're the same reason there's 3 other multicultural groups as well. There's our area for the Asians, there's National Association of Hispanic Real Estate for the Hispanics, and there's the National Association of Real Estate Brokers for the people of color. And I'm members of all of them, by the way, too. And I'm a member of Women's Council as well, because I'm an ally of all those different multicultural organizations too, because I think it's important to support each other in there. And that's why, because everybody needs representation. And as you saw by the 1,000 posts, there's a need for that, because if we see these posts, the consumers see those posts too. So those agents they're going to want to work for or are going to want to hire to represent them in a transaction. So they're going to need representation that they're comfortable with, that they know that someone's going to have their best interest in mind, and that they could feel comfortable in identifying themselves and being their authentic selves in front of who they're hiring.
That's right.
To represent them. That's the bottom line.
And that's why it's so hard. Imagine, there's already a huge disparity in the amount of LGBT homeowners versus the general population because of that fear of discrimination during the home buying process. And imagine them reading these posts and imagine how they feel. And, that's exactly one of the reasons why, the advocacy, of course, I love about the Alliance, but that education component. I feel like with the Alliance, we do a fantastic job, nationally and with all the chapters around the U.S. in providing educational resources for anybody under that real estate umbrella. And so they can understand, again, that fear and the disparities that the LGBTQ plus community has in regards to home buying and selling. And, again, we're trying to educate the professionals to be more understanding. And so they can they're better equipped to serve them. And when I, see these posts, that was one of my first thoughts was, gosh, imagine the consumers reading this. And So, I'm really proud of what the Alliance stands for and what we're here to do as far as educating. But obviously, we have a lot more to go. Alex, let's kind of talk a little bit more about housing discrimination and how it impacts the overall well-being and stability of LGBTQ plus individuals and families. So, I think for me, one of the things that, okay, so this isn't connected to housing, but it is. So bear with me. Whenever I travel somewhere, as I mentioned, I'm married. My husband of 8 years. We've been together 14. And we have a 6-year-old daughter. We adopted her as a newborn. And still to this day, no matter when we're traveling somewhere, we went to Disney World last year for spring break. That was a little intense with a 5-year-old, but it was amazing. But the first thing we did is we Googled, we knew we needed a travel planner. Right. And we Googled LGBT travel planners, Disney. And it's Disney. It's a very, accepting, yep. fun place overall. But I still feel the need to do that because I'm fearful that what if I'm working with this travel planner, they're going to maybe be great at their job, but maybe they're not going to be comfortable working with me because I'm talking about my husband. And, I would like to think that in 2024, that's not the case, but I've experienced differently. So even when I'm traveling, even we were planning our honeymoon 8 years ago, there was, places that we marked off the list because I researched, is this area LGBT friendly? Right. And so many weren't. So, this is exactly the same thing that I have found in clients that I work with, that I represent. They find me on the Alliance public-facing portal, LGBTQ plus homes, and I've been involved on other referral networks that were involved in LGBT real estate, and I have found so many people that have reached out to me because not always are they first-time home buyers, but they have reached out to me because they have experienced discrimination before. They went and looked at a house. The realtor knew that they were partners, and they were still saying his and her things. Well, it's 2 women or it's 2 men, why are you saying his and hers? It's, you're not customizing this to me. And, I still, I find the need to do that, but I have found so many consumers. And in fact, I went from, kind of an average amount of my business being people within the LGBTQ plus community to now, I calculated it, at the end of last year, it was almost 50% of my business was through LGBT consumers, and a lot of them found me or were referred to me by by my past clients who are specifically looking for a gay or gay-friendly realtor. So it would just make that it'd make it a little bit easier for them.
Well, because at the end of the day, we're in a relationship building business. So, and, as a consumer also, you want to be that same thing in return. So you don't want it to be transactional because yes, you could find somebody just to book a trip for you, but that's, but then you're ensuring you're not building a relationship with that person. It's transactional, but you go online and just book something through Expedia and that just becomes transactional. But, you're doing, you're sharing a great experience. Hey, I'm booking a vacation with my family, and you want to, you're going through an agent. You want that person to be as excited for you as you are for your vacation. So that's why you want somebody who understands that and somebody you could be open with and not use coded language and that fear of, are they going to understand me? Are they going to be open and receptive and still not use scripted language like his and her sinks and things like that. So same thing in real estate. Somebody could just do the transaction, write up the contract and sell you the house, but did you build that relationship? And now is that going to be a referral business? Or did you just, do a one-time transaction with that?
Exactly. And a couple of, posts that were anti the, celebration of Pride Month actually said, I don't care who my clients have sex with. I'm not asking my clients who they have sex with. And we're like, of course not. What does that even mean? But are you not asking, are they in a relationship? Are they married? Do they have children? you generally ask those questions, right? So you want somebody to feel comfortable being able to respond. And if you're, saying that, like you just said, it's not just transactional. I mean, we spend a lot of time behind the scenes in our business. We work with, people from all walks of life. And I think it's imperative as professionals that we understand the communities that we serve and the community in general. So when they are reaching out to us, we are saying and doing things that are going to be helpful and not give them cause for pause or fear.
Well, it boils down to we're helping somebody make the largest financial decision in their life, the largest financial transaction they do in their life. They want to have a connection with that person where, that person is invested also and have that connection where it's not just a transaction and it's not just, so that connection with that. And that's what keeps it. At the end of the day, we could all basically do the same thing. There's different skill levels involved in how long you've been in the business and what you can do, whatever. But we could all write up a contract to show a house. The relationship, the rapport you build and things like that, how you connect with somebody, that's what sets us all apart.
Exactly. Great. So, we talk about, some people, have a view of, okay, well, I'm not part of the LGBT community, so I don't need to be a part of an LGBT organization or be a part of the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance. But, allies are so important. But I think sometimes people even get confused on what an ally is. So coming to you, since you obviously have created an ally course, an ally certification course, can you describe, I guess, a little bit more or, define even what an ally is and how somebody can show their allyship in real estate?
Well, I often say ally, allyship is a verb. There's action behind it. You just can't say, yeah, I'm an ally and do nothing. Mm-hmm. You have to, you have to also walk the talk, so kind of standing up, for the community and not just us. You could be an ally to any, to any underserved community. But, it's, all you do, all you standing up for it if you hear somebody say something derogatory, because, at the end of the day, they might not say it to our face. As we walk out of the room, they might say something. So if they say it and you're there in earshot, they say it to you, you stand up and say, hey, that's not right. So those things of that nature, that's how you correct that behavior. Because, it's more impactful when it comes from, it comes from an ally than it does from us. Because then, to somebody, if I correct somebody, I'm just an angry gay trying to collect, that,
yeah.
So, but it's more impactful when it comes from, an ally who stands up and, and voices their displeasure in that as well. So our membership base, actually 25% of our members are allies.
Yeah, which is huge.
Which is great.
Yeah. And, I think that's a very important point. And you mentioned earlier, kind of some of our sister organizations, NAREP, NARIA, NAREB. And, I'm also a member of all of those organizations. And I might not identify, in that, main organization, so I consider myself an ally of them.
Right.
And the partnerships that we all have and the support that we all have for one another, nationally and within our local chapters is huge. And it makes a really big difference. And, I think hearing from them, and they all are the same way, it's all reciprocal. So, again, that allyship is so important because to your point, if you stand up and say something, they're going to be like, well, of course you're going to say that. But when it's somebody who's an ally and they stand up and say something, and we're not talking about, don't have to be aggressive about it, but it's like you see something, say something.
Right.
Say, hey, like, that's not cool, man. Like, don't say that, like, why would you say that?
Right.
Like, what are you so afraid of? That's disrespectful. This is another human being. This is our colleague. Why are you saying things like that? I mean, it goes such a long way.
It's back to being in the schoolyard. It's, there's that bully and, and the kid being picked on could always stand up to the bully. But when everybody stood up to the bully, it was more impactful.
That's right. Yeah. So this kind of goes into our next point, which is the, that I'm really excited about. Can you talk a little bit more about how you formed, and I guess your background of forming the Ally course and training, and the version of now this Ally certification course that you've been teaching?
It was actually an accident. To be honest, it was one of those things. So as you said in my bio at the beginning, so I'm not originally from Ohio. So I'm from South Florida, which is it's very gay there. So I kind of lived in a gay bubble. So but when I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, I wasn't in Kansas anymore, Toto. So there was definitely a need for that, because I had experience for, I think, for the first time in my life, because, I live in an area where, and I hung out in an area where almost everybody was gay. And, bars, clubs, restaurants, all those kind of things, where if you were there, 95% of the people, like you were, in the community. So when you left there, it's kind of like, oh, this is different. And it was very eye-opening for me. And so then, I got licensed there in Ohio, and I did real estate there. So I was very conservative in, because I was get my ground, just feeling out the ground there on, how, who I would tell first, almost like I had to come out all over again, because I didn't know who would accept it or not, because, also Ohio's a little more conservative, and where I was. So then I started talking to people in my association. I would tell them, and stuff like that. And then they would just start asking me questions. And they would ask me, and I'm like, and I've always been, if you ask me, I'm answer. It's always been that that kind of way. So we just got to, someone kept asking me questions. So it was actually my former CEO of my local association. She's now retired from that role. And then we were just talking, and she's like, this ought to be a class. And because she was asking me all these questions, and I'm like, I answered them or whatever. She's like, oh, this is so great. I wish there was a class.
Kudos to her for identifying that need.
Then the light just went on, and then I was like, that's a good idea. Yeah. And I made something, and I just thought it was going to be something local. I made it for the local association, and then I realized, I'm like, what? If I need realtors to attend this, I'm like, it needs to have CE behind it, because no one's just going to take it to take it, So I got it approved, for CE in the state of Ohio. So then I'm like, because as realtors, if we're going to show up, it needs something. And then, the alliance was formed, and I'm like, hey, I have this. And they're like, oh, you have this? Oh, so then we did a focus group and work groups, and we tweaked to kind of, to kind of be able to take it to the national stage, if you will, because I was in a pretty little dress for, local, but I wasn't ready to go national,
right,
kind of thing. So, we tweaked it up, and now it's gone national, and it's CE'd in about 5 states now. I try to get it certified in every state that I go to. Some state, it varies by state to state. I know here in North Carolina, it has to be at least 3 hours for elective to get certified. That's why it's only 2. Mm-hmm. So it's not CE certified here yet. Maybe I'll add another hour somewhere in there, and can be next time I come around. But so that's how it came about. So again, it was an accident, so to speak. So, but it's been great.
It's been really impactful. So some of our staff here at Canopy Realtor Association have taken your course, and I know that they are working towards, having it be implemented or being suggested for maybe everyone to take, because it's so impactful, it's so eye-opening, and I feel fortunate that I get to bear witness to it in person tomorrow. So this would be our first time hosting in person, and we are very excited about that. I think we're going to have a really good turnout, and and again, we are hoping we can continue to have this course being presented and taught here and throughout our other associations in North Carolina as well. I know our State Realtor Association is very excited about your course as well. So, and again, we've given some examples of why there's a need and I know we keep referencing, that post on NAR, but even more reason why this educational component is such a need in our industry. And
it's just amazing. I'm actually still, I can't wrap my head around the opportunity that I've had in teaching it across the country. I've actually taught it to the staff at NAR, both in Chicago and in DC last year. And at a lot of, I went to Keller, Berkshire Hathaway, state conferences, local conferences, things like that. So I just can't still wrap my head around how one little thing that I did just, at a local level has blown up to what it has now. But I do think it is very needed, and obviously still very much needed from we could see, how triggering a little pride post becomes to people that, education is needed, for people to understand.
Exactly. And I think, I know we've talked about this earlier too, but it was like, people sometimes don't know what to say. They don't know. It's like they know it feels wrong, or maybe they're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing, or, they're like, oh, like I really do like Eric and I love Eric, but like, I don't know what to say, when somebody's saying something that, is anti-LGBT, because they get to have their opinions. Well, in our profession, again, that's part of our code of ethics. And, that is a violation of our code of ethics when you're speaking and posting negative comments towards the LGBTQ plus community. I think one of the things too, I mentioned the housing report earlier. We just released our 4th annual housing report with the Alliance. And, kind of before we get to that, I think allies and people outside of our community need to understand that, even though it's in Code of Ethics, sexual orientation and gender identity have been added as protected classes in the Realtor Code of Ethics, that currently the law does allow discrimination against LGBTQ plus people in 31 states. And the single fact is really why our mission and the services of the LGBTQ plus real estate practitioners are so vital to the community. Although LGBTQ plus people are protected in some states and municipalities, federal fair housing laws do not include sexual orientation or gender identity as protected classes. And this allows legal discrimination in 27 states, which can cause barriers to home ownership, obtaining a loan, renting, and even more examples can be provided. But North Carolina, this is one of the main reasons I was so just baffled by this when I realized these stats, just not that many years ago. But North Carolina and South Carolina are two of those states that still allow legal discrimination. And it's my home state. I love my state. I feel really proud of our state in a lot of ways. And then to find out that, we're still two of those 27 states that haven't adopted any type of law for protection is one of the reasons why I got involved with the Alliance, because of the advocacy work we do on a national but also local level. And, again, this is probably why we talked about the home ownership rate, is far below the home ownership rate of the general population. The LGBTQ plus home ownership rate is at 49%. And even 46% of renters are concerned about discrimination in home buying. And one of the main reasons why they don't pursue investing in a home, that, quote, American dream. Alex, well, I'm so glad that, again, that CEO had that thought for you to turn that into a class. I feel like single-handedly that's making a huge difference in our industry. The amount of people that come to me and have communicated to me after they've taken one of your virtual courses, and now the ones who are going to be taking it in person at Canopy tomorrow, they're just like, I thought I was pretty in tune with the LGBT community, but they had so many aha moments. So again, thank you for creating the course. And I know that it's not something that is always easy to do because it's not your primary job. But we definitely appreciate the fact that you have done this in such a easy to understand way. Sometimes things can be so complicated, but you're doing this in such an easy to understand way that literally anybody can connect and follow this guideline. So, Alex, this has been a really insightful conversation. I'm always eager to help outsiders understand that our community is not defined by, our sexual orientation, and that we are advocating for, really our basic human rights and the right to be who we are authentically and to exist in the same way that others exist. Seems pretty simple. We just want to lead happy, productive, fulfilling lives, which includes families and homes. But it looks like we still got to be ready to continue advocating and fighting for these basic rights. I feel like I'm really an optimist at heart. I kind of pride myself on being a problem solver. And I believe that our allies and our work will eventually get us to a point where people realize that we should be treated equally. So if there's one kind of message that you would like to share with our audience, our allies, about allyship, what would that be?
Well, I hope we get there too. So I like to share your optimism when it comes to that, but then I get very deflated when I see posts like that, and it happens more so this month when we should be celebrating it, but it tends to bring us down sometimes. But yes, continue learning, continue educating yourself, continue to stand up, and take a stance, and being an ally. If you're looking to get educated, I do teach the Ally certification course virtually once a quarter. You get information at realestatealliance.org. The education tab is on there with the dates already listed for once a quarter on there, and hopefully it's a huge success here tomorrow. And Canopy will have me back. It'll be great to come back and have a room full of 150 agents and real estate professionals to teach, on a return visit. So.
Absolutely. And Alex, again, thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you to anyone that's out here listening. Hopefully you heard something that will, spark a newfound understanding of our community and the reason why the Alliance is so important in real estate. And for the work in education that you're doing, Alex, to move that needle forward in the fight for, human rights. And to our fellow realtors and community, again, if you've been moved by anything that you've heard today, go to realestatealliance.org. But also, we did start something. It's Take the Pledge at stophateandrealestate.org. Can you tell us just really quickly? I know I'm saying goodbye to you on this podcast, but I think this is so important, and I believe Erin Morrison was kind of at the charge of this last year as national president for the Alliance. And but can you just tell us briefly about Stop Hate in Real Estate and who is behind forming this? Yeah,
absolutely. So Stop Hate in Real Estate is a coalition group that we spearheaded. But it is with us, the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance, with the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, of Women Up, and we started this together to stand up as a united front. So an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. So we, because again, we were all dealing with our own little issues, individually. So now we stand united as one, giving us and amplifying our voices even louder. Because now there's tens of thousands of us instead of us individually kind of dealing with our own things. Now we unite as one. Kind of like think of like a coalition army of different countries when you fight against a war or something like that. So. Hopefully, these larger voices help amplify these issues that come around for each one of these different groups when something happens.
Absolutely. And again, guys, that's if you want to take the pledge, it's stophateandrealestate.org. So thank you, everybody. Again, thank you to the audience for listening. Thank you to Canopy for allowing us this opportunity to take over their podcast for the day. And Alex, for like the 10th time I've told you in the last 5 minutes, thank you again for being here.
My pleasure.
And we look forward to again, contributing more to our industry, our communities that we live in through our local chapters. So if you would like to get involved in our North Carolina chapter, please reach out to me. I'm the president of our state chapter. And if you are listening from another city or another state, check out realestatealliance.org to find the local chapter near you.
You're listening to Inside the Canopy Files, a production of Canopy Realtor Association. Canopy Realtor Association is a trade association that provides more than 16,000 realtor members with the resources and services they need to conduct ethical, professional, successful, and profitable businesses. The association is dedicated to being the region's primary resource for the residential real estate information, and it owns and operates Canopy MLS, which has more than 20,000 subscribers and is the private cooperative realtors use for access to tens of thousands of residential listings in a 24-county service area, including Charlotte, the mountains area of North Carolina, South Carolina, and beyond. And we want to hear from you. Please visit us at canopyrealtors.com and connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Canopy Realtor, and listen to our podcast on your favorite platform. And hey, give us a 5-star rating. Send us your feedback and comments to president@canopyrealtors.com. Thanks again for listening to Inside the Canopy Files. We'll see you next time. Inside the Canopy Files is produced by Canopy's Marketing and Communications Department and Andy Go of Gojo Studios.